If you are a Black woman working in corporate America, I want to start this deep dive with something really important. You are not imagining it, that impossible pressure you feel to be perfect all the time,
Yeah.
that feeling that your margin for error is just razor thin, that you really can't make mistakes.
Mhm.
We've got the sources here to show you exactly why that's a completely rational, evidence-based feeling.
That's so right. And our whole mission today is to go beyond just the feeling and
Yeah.
look at the structure underneath it. Because this need for perfection, it isn't a personal flaw. It's not, an anxiety issue. It is the predictable, almost intelligent result of a system. A whole stack of things, really. History, stereotypes, current workplace bias, they all come together to demand this level of excellence just to get the baseline respect that other people get automatically. We're going to break that down piece by piece.
Okay, let's unpack that. We're working with some really incredible research today. It traces this pressure from its deep historical roots, these things called controlling images from centuries ago, all the way up to the hard data we have now, pay, promotions, things like that. So we'll look at where the burden comes from, how it shows up today, and why it forces this exhausting state of hypervigilance.
Right. And to really get why the pressure is so intense now, we have to go back. We have to see that the modern office is just the latest stage for these old biases. And that starts with this foundational concept from Black feminist scholarship called controlling images.
Okay, controlling images. For anyone listening who hasn't come across that term, can you just quickly frame what that is?
Of course. So controlling images are these narrow, often contradictory stereotypes of Black women. They were basically manufactured by the dominant culture, starting way back before the Civil War, and their purpose was purely systemic. It was about justifying exploitation, denying humanity, and just, imposing social control.
Right.
They aren't just offensive words. They actually dictate what's seen as acceptable and what gets punished.
And these images, these boxes, they're so interesting because they put Black women in this impossible bind. You can't possibly be all of them, but you get judged against all of them at the same time. So let's walk through some of the classic ones.
Let's start with the mammy image. So this is the loyal, tireless, always cheerful servant. And crucially, the mammy never complains, never needs a break, and never ever needs support. That expectation of endless, unpaid labor that maps directly onto the modern corporate world. The expectation to take on extra work, to manage office drama, to do things way outside your job description, and to do it all with a smile.
And then you have the complete opposite, the Jezebel. The hypersexual figure used historically to justify just awful exploitation.
Right.
And while you might think that's less relevant in a board meeting, its shadow shows up, right? It's there in the hyper-critique of professionalism, of what you're wearing, your hair.
Oh, absolutely. And then critically, there's the sapphire, or what most people now know as the angry Black woman.
Mm.
This is the caricature of someone who's loud, aggressive, irrational, dangerous. And this is maybe the most damaging image in the workplace today. It shapes how everything from confidence to just being direct is perceived.
And here's the really insidious part. Even the positive image, the strong Black woman, gets turned into a weapon in the corporate world. It's this idea that you must be endlessly strong, endure anything, handle it all with grace. And here's the catch. You don't need any support. You don't need rest or vulnerability. So that image literally demands perfection and self-sacrifice. It's a recipe for burnout.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
These images, they didn't just disappear. They just got a corporate update. So that historical expectation that you work twice as hard and never show you're struggling, that's not just a vague feeling in the air. It feeds directly into how performance reviews get written today, how promotions are decided, how a mistake is judged. The bias is baked right into the system's expectations.
All right, so let's fast forward to today. We have this historical context crashing right into modern data, and it confirms that the stakes are just fundamentally different. Let's talk about double jeopardy, this idea of facing discrimination on two fronts at once, race and gender.
The data on this is it's undeniable, and it shows this systemic devaluation right from the start. If you look at the wage gap, Black women in the U.S. earn about 66 cents for every dollar paid to a white non-Hispanic man. And that's even when you control for things like education and occupation and experience. So the system is telling you you're worth less right there on your pay stub.
Wow, 66 cents. That number alone signals that the organization sees you as less valuable. And it's not just the pay, it's the day-to-day experience. I saw a recent 2025 report that found that 66%, a huge number of Black women, report racial discrimination at work. And they describe it as a regular thing, not some rare event.
And that regular discrimination isn't just, big, obvious incidents. It's the microaggressions. The sources are full of them. Being talked over in meetings, people assuming you're less competent, or getting that strange compliment, oh, you're so articulate, or being mistaken for the only other black colleague. When the system keeps sending you these signals, big and small, that you're valued less, well, the pressure to prove them wrong, the pressure to be perfect, it just skyrockets.
And that devaluation leads right to what the research calls the broken rung. This systemic failure to promote Black women right at that first step into management, the numbers are so clear. For every 100 men promoted to manager, only 58 Black women get that same promotion. And that's even though they're asking for it at the same rate.
That's the crucial link right there. If the ambition is there and they're asking for it, why the gap? And the research points to a clear bias in how people are evaluated. Managers are less likely to see potential in Black female candidates, so they don't get the sponsorship. They get told they need more seasoning, more experience, even when their performance is solid. The system denies the promotion because of a perceived lack of potential.
And with fewer promotions, you get this critical lack of representation higher up. Black women are only, 1 to 4% of C-suite jobs in big companies, and that creates another layer of pressure, the burden of being the only.
Yes. If you are the only Black woman in the room, or on your team, or in your department, everything you do feels hyper-visible. Every minor slip-up, every mistake, it stops being an individual error and it feels like it's proof. Proof that maybe Black women aren't ready for that role. Your behavior suddenly represents your entire group.
So that feeling of paranoia, that all your mistakes are under a microscope, it's actually justified. It's how stereotyping works when you're underrepresented. And this is exactly how those old historical images pop up in today's corporate language.
And we actually have data that shows how the angry Black woman stereotype is used as a tool. There was a 2018 study that showed this perfectly. When Black women were viewed through that aggressive lens, they were rated as less professional and significantly less suitable for leadership. And this is when their behavior, their directness, was identical to others.
That is just, it's maddening. It means a white guy can be direct in a meeting and he's confident, he's decisive, a leader. But a Black woman says the same thing in the same way and she's aggressive, abrasive, intimidating. Knowing that's the lens people are using forces you into this constant, exhausting self-monitoring. You're over-editing your voice, your face, the tone of every single email, just to fight a stereotype.
And the research confirms that the consequences for making a mistake are worse too. Studies show that companies tend to monitor Black workers more closely. And because of that, they're quicker to make negative assumptions about their ability. They're far more likely to lay them off or not renew a contract compared to their white colleagues.
So the system is saying, we'll pay you less, we'll promote you less, and by the way, the same small mistake a white colleague might make, something that's a learning opportunity for them. For you, it's more likely to be read as proof you're not a good fit, or even grounds for being let go. The consequences are just disproportionately severe.
Right. And this systemic denial of a learning curve is what forces the perfection strategy. The coping mechanisms you read about in the research are, well, they're powerful. Black women talking about triple-checking every single document, softening their language in emails until it's barely what they mean, taking on huge amounts of extra work, often work that won't get them promoted, just so no one can ever say they aren't pulling their weight.
I just want to pause on that. These aren't just stories. This is evidence of incredible strain. And the language of perfection shows up right there in the academic data. There's one quote that really stood out, summarizing this whole burden. It's the phrase, "I have to be perfect, a hero." That idea of being a hero, it's a demanding and ultimately unsustainable shield.
And the burden doesn't even stop there. If you're trying to be the perfect employee, you often end up being the conscience of the company too. Black women are statistically more likely than anyone else to call out bias or push for inclusion.
But here's the ultimate catch-22. They're also more likely to face retaliation for doing that, which creates this final toxic part of the puzzle. You're expected to do your job flawlessly, carry the emotional weight for the whole culture. But if you speak up too loudly or you make one little slip, the data shows your job is on the line.
Okay, let's pull all these threads together now. We looked at the big picture, we can see how all these layers stack up to logically create that "I can't make mistakes" mindset.
Right, that structural stacking is so important. Can you walk us through that step by step?
Sure. Think of it like a tower of cards, one that's designed to be unstable for some people. First, history sets the foundation. It demands impossible standards. Be the tireless mammy, but also be the strong Black woman who never needs help.
Okay. Then, layer 2, the data confirms it. You're paid less, you're discriminated against, you're promoted less. The system signals you're not as valued.
Exactly. Third, because there are so few of you, any individual mistake is seen as reflecting on your entire group. It's not just Jane had a bad day. It becomes, are we sure Black women are ready for this?
And fourth, the culture punishes you for trying to fix it. Speaking up about injustice is a high-risk move.
And the final layer is the fragility of right now. The backlash against DEI, the layoffs that are disproportionately hitting Black women. Our source mentioned a shocking number, 300,000 Black women leaving or being forced out of jobs in just 3 months in one recent year. That feeling that your job is fragile, it's completely grounded in reality.
So when you're living and working at the center of all of that historical, financial, psychological pressure, your whole nervous system just adapts. It learns, if I'm not twice as good, twice as prepared, twice as careful, I am not safe here.
This is so important. This is perfectionism. It is not a personal flaw. It is a protective, necessary survival strategy in a system that does not give Black women the same margin for error as everyone else. The takeaway for you listening is this. The problem is not your work ethic or your anxiety. The problem is the corporate systems that fail to extend the same humanity, the same grace, the same learning curve that they offer so routinely to white employees. That is the failure.
So we've spent this deep dive really identifying that systemic problem, validating that this pressure is real, it's intelligent, it's predictable.
And just to reiterate for you, the listener, feeling this pressure is not a sign that you're weak or too sensitive. It is a smart adaptation to a real documented bias. Your internal barometer is working perfectly. It's just reading a hostile environment.
So the next challenge is, what do you do with this knowledge? How do you move from knowing the pressure is real to navigating it and protecting yourself?
And that leads to the final thought we want to leave you with. If the data clearly shows corporate systems have this grace gap, if they extend a learning curve to some people but not others, what fundamental changes must organizations make? I mean, we're talking about redesigning performance reviews to get rid of subjective language, building mentorship that actually closes the promotion gap, revising policies so that a mistake is a learning moment for all employees, not just the ones who already fit the mold. That's the real question of corporate accountability to mull over.